"I want that human, mother," said the Orc princess, unaware that his father was a powerful king. There are moments in life when wanting something changes everything, when a simple desire becomes the first domino that topples an entire world. This is the story of an Orc princess who pointed at a prisoner and said 4 words that would start a war. She didn't know he was a prince. He didn't tell her. And that lie would break both their hearts and nearly destroy 2 kingdoms. The dungeons of the Bloodstone Fortress smelled like every dungeon in the world. Iron, desperation, and the particular stench of hope dying slowly. But Princess Raca didn't notice. She'd been coming down here since she was 12, when other noble Orc children were learning proper etiquette and the 73 ways to hold a ceremonial blade without dishonoring your ancestors. Raca preferred the dungeons. Down here, everyone was honest. Pain made people truthful in ways palace politics never could. She walked past the cells with the confidence of someone who'd never been caged. Leather boots making sharp sounds on stone, each step deliberate. The guards straightened when they saw her. One dropped his drinking horn. Raca had that effect. Not because she was particularly frightening. At 5'9", she was actually short for an Orc, but because she had her mother's eyes. The kind of eyes that made grown warriors reconsider their life choices. "New prisoners from the border raid?" Raca asked Guard Captain Dersha, who stood at attention with the posture of someone who'd been standing at attention for so many years, her spine had forgotten how to relax. "Yes, Princess. 15 humans, caught sneaking through Wolfpine Pass." Dersha's missing left eye socket stared at Raca with the intensity of an eye that was still there. She refused to wear an eye patch. "Let enemies see what happens," she always said, "when they get too close." Raca moved along the cells. Most prisoners looked exactly like prisoners, defeated, dirty, counting days they'd never see again. But then she saw him. Cell 7. A young human man sat with his back against the stone wall, chin up, eyes forward, not defiant, not broken, just present. Like he was simply waiting for something, though Raca couldn't imagine what. He had brown hair that fell into dark eyes, a jaw that suggested he'd thrown a few punches in his life, and hands that were calloused, but not from farming. There was something about the way he held himself, something that didn't match his torn clothes and dirt-smudged face. Raca stopped walking. "That one," she said. Dersha's single eye blinked. "Princess? That human. I want him." The silence that followed had weight. The kind of silence that happens when someone says something that sounds simple, but everyone knows is complicated. "For questioning, Princess?" Dersha asked carefully. "No. As a personal servant, I need someone to carry my books, polish my armor, fetch things I'm too royal to fetch myself." Raca tilted her head, studying the prisoner. He was watching her now, those dark eyes unreadable. "He looks sturdy. Does he have a name?" "Calls himself Damien, Princess. Won't give a family name. Says he's a farmer's son from the eastern valleys." "Damien." Raca tested the word. Human names always sounded soft to Orcish ears, like they were missing the proper amount of growl. "Can you speak? Damien the farmer's son?" The human stood up slowly. He was tall for a human, 5'11", nearly Raca's height. When he spoke, his voice was steady. "I can speak." "Good. Servants who can't follow verbal commands are incredibly inconvenient." Raca turned to Dersha. "Have him cleaned up and brought to the palace. I'll inform Mother." "Princess, your mother the Queen might have concerns about you taking a human prisoner as a personal—" "My mother has concerns about everything I do, Dersha. If I waited for her approval, I'd still be learning to hold teacups properly and considering political marriages to Orcs whose greatest achievement is having a famous father." Raca started walking toward the stairs. "Besides, he's a prisoner of war. What's he going to do? Assassinate me with a dust cloth?" Dersha looked at the human called Damien. He looked back. Something passed between them, the universal language of, "This is going to be a problem, isn't it?" "Yes, Princess," Dersha said. What neither of them knew, what couldn't possibly know, was that Damien wasn't a farmer's son. He was Prince Damien Thornheart, only child of King Raymond, heir to the entire Eastern Human Kingdom. He'd been leading a small diplomatic scouting party when they'd been ambushed by an orc patrol that had no interest in diplomatic immunity. His men had died. He'd been captured, and in the 3 seconds between capture and interrogation, Damien had made a choice. If they knew he was a prince, they'd execute him immediately or use him as a hostage to extract impossible concessions from his father. So he'd said he was a farmer. He'd hidden the silver medallion his mother had given him before she died, the one with the royal crest inside, beneath his shirt against his skin, and he'd waited to see if he'd survive long enough to escape. He hadn't expected a princess to claim him as a servant. As Dersha unlocked the cell, Damien touched the medallion through his shirt. Still there. Still hidden. His mother's voice echoed in memory. Sometimes the bravest thing a prince can do is pretend he isn't one. "You're lucky," Dersha muttered as she clamped iron cuffs on his wrists. Not tight enough to hurt, but present enough to remind him what he was. Princess Raka is odd for an orc. You'll probably live longer with her than in this cell. How reassuring, Damien said. Wasn't meant to be reassuring, was meant to be true. Dersha pulled him toward the door. One thing, human, if you try anything that threatens the princess, I won't kill you quickly. I'll do it slowly enough that you'll beg for the cell back. Understand? Perfectly. The walk from dungeon to palace took 20 minutes. 20 minutes for Damien to map escape routes he'd probably never use. 20 minutes to wonder if his father had noticed he was missing yet. 20 minutes to realize that being a servant might actually be the perfect cover for gathering intelligence about orc military movements. And 20 minutes to wonder what kind of orc princess collected human prisoners like pets. The palace was different from human castles, where human architecture reached for the sky, orc structures dug into the earth, all thick stone and heavy timber, built to withstand sieges that could last decades. The aesthetic wasn't beautiful in the way human palaces were beautiful. It was beautiful in the way a mountain was beautiful. Inevitable, immovable, ancient. Mokka the healer was waiting in a side chamber. He didn't speak. Mokka never spoke, but his eyebrows did enough talking for 10 people. When he saw Damien, both eyebrows shot up in an expression that clearly said, "Another one? Really?" "Princess's orders," Dersha said. "Clean him up." Mokka grunted, concerned grunt, gestured to a large stone tub, "Sit," and began preparing hot water with movements that suggested he'd done this many times before and found it tedious every single time. The bath was the first hot water Damien had felt in 6 days. He tried not to show how good it felt, tried not to let his guard down. But there was something about Mokka's complete lack of interest in conversation that made the silence almost comfortable. Mokka handed him soap, gesture, "Use this." Clean clothes, gesture, "Wear these," and then did something unexpected. He pointed at Damien's chest, where the medallion rested hidden, and raised one eyebrow, concerned eyebrow. Damien's heart stopped. But Mokka just grunted, knowing grunt, shook his head, "I won't tell," and turned away to organize bandages that didn't need organizing. Some secrets apparently were safe with people who never spoke at all. When Damien was clean and dressed in simple servant's clothes, still rough but better than prison rags, Dersha escorted him to the royal chambers. The corridors were filled with orcs going about their business, warriors, servants, nobles, children chasing each other while their parents shouted after them to stop running in the halls. It was normal, disturbingly normal. These were supposed to be monsters, savages. The stories Damien had grown up with painted orcs as bloodthirsty creatures who lived only for war and destruction. But here was an orc mother braiding her daughter's white hair. There was an old orc grandfather teaching a young warrior how to properly sharpen a blade. Over there, 2 orc merchants argued about the price of grain with the intensity of people who cared very much about grain prices. They were just people, green people with tusks and cultural differences, but people. The realization sat uncomfortably in Damien's chest. Princess Raka's chambers were smaller than he'd expected. No grand throne room or excessive decorations. Just a large space with training weapons on one wall, books piled on every available surface, and windows that overlooked the mountains. It was the room of someone who read more than they slept and trained more than they socialized. Rucker stood by the window, still in her leather armor. She didn't turn when Dursha entered. "Leave us," she said. Dursha hesitated. Her hand moved toward her weapon. "He's unarmed, Dursha, and I've been training since I was 6. I think I can handle one exhausted human." Rucker finally turned. "Besides, if he tries to kill me, you'll hear me scream. These walls are thick but not soundproof. Your mother will hear about this regardless of what we do. Might as well let her yell at me for something I actually enjoyed doing." Rucker smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile, just tired. "Go. I'll summon you if I need you." Dursha left with the reluctance of someone walking away from a disaster in progress. The door closed. Damien and Rucker stood 10 feet apart, studying each other. "So," Rucker said finally, "Damien the farmer's son, are you going to try to kill me?" "No." "Are you going to try to escape?" "Not immediately." "Honest. I like that." Rucker moved to her desk. More accurately, her desk-shaped pile of papers and books. "Most servants lie about the escape thing. They say, 'No, princess, never, princess. I love being enslaved, princess. I prefer you.' Glad to be preferred. Don't be smug. You're still property." But her tone lacked the edge that should accompany that statement. "Sit." Damien sat in a wooden chair that was definitely built for someone orc-sized. His feet barely touched the ground. Rucker pulled out a piece of parchment and a quill. "I need to write a formal report for my mother about why I claimed a prisoner. She'll require justification. Help me make this sound official." "You want me to help you justify enslaving me?" "See, when you say it like that, it sounds bad." Rucker tapped the quill against her tusk, a gesture Damien would learn was her thinking tell. How about this? In an effort to improve human-orc relations through cultural exchange and demonstration of mercy, I have selected a prisoner for personal service, thereby showing that orcs can be magnanimous conquerors. That's actually not terrible. I know. I'm very good at making terrible things sound reasonable. It's a family trait." Rucker started writing. "My mother does it with war. I do it with everything else." The scratching of quill on parchment filled the silence. Damien watched her write. Her handwriting was surprisingly elegant for someone who probably spent more time holding swords than pens. "Why did you really choose me?" Damien asked. Rucker stopped writing. For a long moment she didn't move. Then, "You looked at me. Everyone looks at you. You're a princess." "No. Everyone looks at Princess Rucker, daughter of Queen Vorga, future leader of the Bloodstone clan, political asset, breeding stock for advantageous marriages." She set down the quill. "You looked at me like I was just a person walking past your cell, like you were measuring me as me, not what I represented. I was measuring whether you were going to have me executed. See? Honest and practical. Excellent qualities in a servant." Rucker smiled again. This time it reached her eyes. "Also, I've never had a human servant before. I wanted to see if the stories were true." "What stories?" "That humans are weak, fragile, inferior." She leaned back in her chair. "Are you?" Damien thought about his answer carefully. "We break more easily. We don't live as long. We're smaller." He met her eyes. "But we're not inferior, just different." "Different," Rucker repeated. "I like that word better than the ones we usually use." It was such a small moment, just 2 people from different species agreeing on a word, but Damien felt something shift, something that would matter later, though he didn't know it yet. What he did know was that the silver medallion pressed against his chest felt heavier than before. Every moment he didn't tell the truth was another stone added to a wall that would eventually have to come down. But not today. Today, he would survive. Today, he would be Damien the farmer's son, and he would hope that tomorrow he'd still be alive to regret it. The first week was strange. Damien had expected cruelty, expected to be worked until exhaustion, beaten for small mistakes, treated like the enemy he technically was. That's what prisoners were for, weren't they? Suffering? But Princess Raka was nothing like what he'd expected. She gave him a small room next to her chambers, not a cell, an actual room with a bed and a window. She asked his opinion on things. She taught him Orcish words, while he taught her human ones. When he cleaned her armor, she sat nearby reading battle strategies aloud, asking what he thought of the tactics. "You do realize I'm your enemy," Damien said one afternoon while polishing her ceremonial shoulder plates. "Are you planning to overthrow the Orcish Empire?" Raka asked, not looking up from her book. "Not actively." "Then you're not my enemy. You're just someone who happened to be born on the wrong side of a border, drawn by people who died centuries ago." She turned a page. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately. How much of war is actual conflict versus inherited grudges we're too proud to let go?" Damien paused mid-polish. "That's surprisingly philosophical for someone in an army family. My mother leads the army. I read about why armies shouldn't exist. It's a whole thing between us." Raka closed the book. "Tell me about human farms. Your family's farm." The lie came easily now. Too easily. Damien had practiced his fake backstory so many times it almost felt real. Small. 20 acres. We grew wheat mostly. Some vegetables. My father wanted me to take over, but... He shrugged. "I wanted to see more of the world first. And instead you got captured by orcs. Careful what you wish for. The irony isn't lost on me. Do you miss it? The farm?" Yes, Damien thought, but not a farm. He missed his father's war room, where they'd spent evenings discussing philosophy and politics. Missed the castle library where he'd learned 6 languages. Missed the training yard, where Felix had taught him that a smaller fighter could beat a stronger one with the right techniques. "Sometimes," he said instead. "Mostly I miss not being a prisoner." "You're barely a prisoner anymore. You have your own room. You eat the same food I do. Yesterday you argued with me about military strategy for an hour, and I let you win 3 points. 2 points. The third one you conceded sarcastically. Still counts." Raka stood, stretching. "Come on. I want to show you something." She led him through corridors he hadn't seen before, downstairs, through a guarded door and into a garden. It shouldn't have surprised him. But somehow, finding a lush green garden in the heart of an orc fortress felt like discovering a secret the world had forgotten to mention. Trees grew tall, their leaves whispering in wind that smelled like rain and earth. Flowers bloomed in colors that didn't match, purple next to red next to yellow, in chaotic beauty that suggested whoever planted them cared about life, but not about aesthetics. "This is my mother's garden," Raka said quietly. "She made it 30 years ago, when she first became queen. Said she needed somewhere that didn't smell like war. I didn't know orcs gardened. There's a lot you don't know about orcs. That's kind of my point in bringing you here." Raka walked to a stone bench beneath a massive oak tree. "Sit." They sat. Above them, leaves moved like green flames. For a moment neither spoke. "Do you know why we're at war?" Raka asked. "Because orcs and humans have always been at war." "But why?" Damien thought about it. Really thought about it. "I don't actually know. Neither do I. I've read 70 years of military records, studied every major battle, and you know what I found? The original reason was a border dispute over a valley that doesn't even exist anymore. It got destroyed in the Third War. But we kept fighting. And fighting, and now nobody remembers why we started. We just know that we hate each other, and that's reason enough. Is there a point to this historical lesson?" "The point," Raka said, turning to look at him fully, "is that you're the first human I've ever had a conversation with, and you're nothing like what I was taught humans were, which makes me wonder what else I was taught wrong." Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them in that moment. Something neither was ready to name. Something that felt dangerous and inevitable at the same time. Damien's hand unconsciously moved to his chest, where the medallion rested hidden. The weight of his lie felt crushing suddenly. She was opening up to him, questioning everything she knew, and he was lying to her face about who he was. "Raka! Princess Raka!" A voice shattered the moment. Dersha appeared at the garden entrance, breathing hard. "The Queen requests your immediate presence in the war room." The softness vanished from Raka's face. She stood, instantly transforming from thoughtful girl to commanding princess. "What's happened?" "The human kingdom. King Raymond has declared total war. They're mobilizing the entire Eastern Army. Intelligence suggests they're marching toward our borders within the week." Damien's blood turned to ice. His father was coming. "Total war?" Raka's voice was sharp. "Why now? What changed?" "They're saying—" Dersha glanced at Damien, uncertain. "They're saying one of their nobles was captured. Someone important. And King Raymond has sworn to burn every orc settlement to ash until we return him." The world tilted. Raka followed Dersha's gaze to Damien. Her eyes narrowed. How important would a noble have to be for a king to start a total war? "Very important," Damien managed to say. His mind raced. His father was going to destroy the entire orc nation to find him. How many would die? How many already had? "Come on," Raka said, her tone cooled. "Mother will want to question all human prisoners, including you." As they walked back through the garden, Damien's hand clutched the medallion through his shirt. The truth was coming whether he wanted it or not. War had a way of exposing every secret. The question wasn't if Raka would discover who he really was. The question was whether she'd forgive him when she did. The war room was exactly what it sounded like. A massive stone chamber, dominated by a table covered in maps, troop markers, and the visual representation of death. Queen Vorga stood at the head of the table, looking exactly like someone who'd been leading armies, longer than most warriors, had been alive. At 5'7", she was shorter than her daughter, but carried twice the presence. When she spoke, generals listened. When she frowned, empires reconsidered their strategies. She was frowning now. "The human king has gone mad," she said, without preamble as Raka entered. "He's threatening to exterminate every orc between here and the sea unless we return whoever we captured. He's calling them a prince, but according to our records, we captured no nobility in that border raid. Just soldiers and a handful of scouts." Raka's eyes flickered to Damien, who stood by the door, with Dersha's hand firmly on his shoulder. "Maybe he's lying," General Kragmar suggested. The massive orc warrior had 3 skulls hanging from his belt, the ones he consulted before major decisions. Humans lie. It's their primary tactical advantage. "King Raymond doesn't bluff," said another general. "If he says he'll burn everything, he means it. Then we prepare for siege. We've held these mountains against human armies before. Not against one this size. Intelligence reports suggest he's mobilized everything. Every knight, every soldier, every farmer who can hold a spear. This isn't a military campaign. This is extinction-level warfare." Vorga's frown deepened. "Over one person. Over his son." Felix's voice rang out. Everyone turned. A human man stood in the doorway, grey-haired, dignified, with the bearing of someone who'd spent a lifetime in royal courts. He was flanked by orc guards, clearly a prisoner but treated with cautious respect. Damien's heart stopped. Felix, his father's advisor, his mentor. What was he doing here? "Who are you?" Vorga demanded. "Sir Felix Ashford, advisor to King Raymond." Felix bowed with precise correctness. "I was captured 2 days ago when I came under white flag to negotiate. Your border guards didn't care much for white flags. Speak quickly, human. Why should I not have you executed as a spy? Because I came to tell you the truth." Felix's eyes swept the room and landed on Damien. For just a moment his expression shifted. Relief, fear, anger, all hidden quickly. The noble you captured wasn't nobility. He was royalty. Prince Damien Thornheart, heir to the human throne. And King Raymond will end your entire race to get him back. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that happens right before avalanches. Raka turned slowly to look at Damien. Her face was unreadable. "We have no prince," Vorga said carefully. "We have soldiers, scouts, farmers." "Then one of your farmers," Felix said quietly, "is lying about who he is." Every eye in the room turned to Damien. Dersha's grip tightened on his shoulder. Raka's face had gone carefully blank, the expression of someone processing information that rewrites their entire world. "Bring all human prisoners from that raid," Vorga commanded. "Now!" 5 minutes later, 6 surviving prisoners stood in a line. Damien was one of them. Felix walked slowly down the line, looking at each face. When he reached Damien, he stopped. "Your Majesty," Felix said, and knelt. The world exploded. Dersha drew her weapon. 4 other guards did the same. Raka made a sound that might have been a gasp, or might have been something breaking. Vorga's face transformed from political mask to pure rage. "He told us he was a farmer," Dersha said, her voice dangerous. "He lied," Felix confirmed. "To save his life, I imagine. Captured royalty are usually executed immediately or used for leverage too terrible to contemplate. He made a tactical choice." "He made a foolish choice," Vorga said. "Does he have any idea what his father will do? The war that's coming?" "He knows," Felix said quietly. "He's probably known since the moment he was captured, and he's been carrying that weight alone." Damien finally found his voice. "I'm sorry. It was inadequate, pathetic, but it was all he had." Raka was staring at him. Not with anger, not with betrayal, just staring, like she was looking at a stranger wearing a familiar face. "You lied to me," she said. "Yes. Every day, every conversation, every moment when I thought we were—" She stopped, swallowed. "You lied. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. They would have killed me." "I wouldn't have." The words ripped out of Raka with force that made several guards step back. "I wouldn't have killed you. I'm not a murderer, but you didn't trust me enough to find out, did you? You just lied and let me believe." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Damien wanted to explain. Wanted to tell her that he'd wanted to tell her 100 times. That every moment of deception had felt like swallowing glass, that he'd never meant for her to care about him, never meant to care about her, never meant for any of this to become real. But what did intentions matter when the result was war? "Put him in the vault," Vorga said. "Maximum security. If King Raymond wants his son back, he'll negotiate for him properly. Not with threats of genocide." "And if he doesn't negotiate?" Kragmar asked. "If he just attacks? Then we have the one thing in the world he cares about, and we'll use that however we must." Vorga's expression was carved stone. This war was coming eventually. At least now we know why. As guards moved to take Damien, he caught Raka's eyes one more time. "I'm sorry," he said again. "So am I," Raka whispered, and the pain in her voice was worse than any blade. They dragged him from the room, down different corridors, deeper than the dungeons he'd started in, to a vault built to hold things too valuable or too dangerous to keep anywhere else. The door was 6 inches of solid iron. The cell beyond had no windows, no light except what came from the corridor. No furniture except a stone shelf that might have been a bed, if you were optimistic. Felix was pushed into the cell with him. The door slammed, locked, sealed. Darkness swallowed everything. "You told her you were a farmer." Felix's voice came from the blackness. "Yes." "Did it work?" "For a while." "Did you fall in love with her?" Damien didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the truth was so much worse than love. Love you could fight, love you could deny, but what he felt for Raka was something deeper. Recognition. Like finding a piece of yourself you didn't know was missing in the last place you'd ever think to look. "Your father is coming," Felix said quietly. "He's bringing 10,000 men. He's sworn to tear these mountains apart, stone by stone. How many will die? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands." Felix's voice was heavy. "Human and orc both. All because a prince decided to lie instead of trust. I was trying to survive." "I know, but sometimes survival has a price we don't see until it's too late." Felix's hand found Damien's shoulder in the darkness. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Well, figure it out, because when your father arrives, he won't stop until either you're free or everything is ashes, and I'm not sure which outcome is worse." Damien leaned his head against cold stone. Somewhere above, Raka was probably in her room, maybe crying, maybe furious, maybe both. He touched the medallion at his chest. The secret that had destroyed everything. His mother's voice echoed in memory. Sometimes the bravest thing a prince can do is pretend he isn't one. She'd been wrong. The bravest thing he could have done was tell the truth, even if it killed him. Now the only question was, could he find the courage to do it now, when it mattered most? When the cost wasn't just his life, but the lives of everyone caught between two kingdoms that had forgotten how to be anything except enemies. Outside the cell, he heard footsteps, multiple guards. Then Vorga's voice, cold and commanding. "Prepare him for transport. King Raymond wants his son back. He'll get him back in pieces if necessary." The war was here, and Damien had brought it. 3 days passed in the vault. 3 days of darkness broken only when guards brought food. 3 days of Felix explaining in careful detail how badly Damien had miscalculated everything. "Your father isn't just angry," Felix said on the 3rd night. "He's destroyed. You're all he has left after your mother died. When he got word you were captured, he didn't think strategically. He didn't consider politics or casualties. He just thought, my son is in danger, and he mobilized everything. I didn't ask him to do that. Love doesn't ask permission." Felix's voice carried decades of watching kings make terrible decisions for beautiful reasons. "Do you know what he told me before I left? He said, 'Bring him home or bring me proof he's dead.' I won't live in uncertainty. So this is my fault, all of it. No, this is the fault of generations who chose war over understanding. You're just the match that lit a fire that was always waiting to burn." Felix paused. "But you could be the water too, if you're brave enough." Before Damien could ask what that meant, the vault door opened. Light spilled in. Damien and Felix squinted against sudden brightness. Silhouetted in the doorway was Raka. "Out," she told the guards. "Both of you. Princess, the Queen specifically ordered. I'm giving you a new order. Leave. Close the door. Don't come back until I call." The guards exchanged looks, but when a princess used that tone, you obeyed. They left. The door closed. Not locked, just closed. Raka stood in the corridor light, her shadow stretching into the cell. She'd been crying. Damien could see the evidence even in dim light. The redness around her eyes, the way she held herself like someone keeping broken pieces together through sheer will. "I've been thinking," she said finally, "about trust, about lies, about why we believe what we believe. Raka, don't, just listen." She took a breath. "You lied to me because you thought I'd kill you if you told the truth, which means you thought I was a monster, which means all those conversations we had, all those moments when I thought we were seeing each other clearly, you were just seeing a monster you had to survive. That's not, isn't it?" Her voice cracked. "Be honest, Damien, or should I call you Prince? Your Highness, what's the proper title for someone who made me fall in love with a person who doesn't exist?" The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. "I never meant for you to—" "I know!" Raka's shout echoed off stone. "I know you didn't. That's what makes it worse. You weren't trying to hurt me, you were just trying to survive. And somehow I became collateral damage in your survival strategy. Everything I told you was true, except my name and my father's profession. Except the only things that mattered." She stepped into the cell. "Do you know what's happening up there? Your father's army is 3 days away. My mother is preparing for total war. We have supply lines organized, defensive positions established, and a strategy that will kill approximately 30,000 humans and 18,000 orcs in the first month alone. That's before starvation, disease, and the inevitable collapse of both kingdoms' economies." She pulled something from her pocket, held it up. The silver medallion caught the light. Damien's hand went to his chest. "It was gone. When had Mokka found it when he treated a cut on your ribs 2 days ago. He gave it to me, didn't say a word, because he never does, but his eyebrows said plenty." Raka opened the medallion. Inside, the royal crest gleamed. A lion. How poetic. The brave prince hiding among the monsters. "I was going to tell you." "When? After the war? After my mother executed you? After your father burned my home to the ground?" She closed the medallion with a snap. Or were you just going to keep lying until someone died? I don't know. The admission ripped out of him. I don't know what I was going to do. Every day I woke up and thought, today I'll tell her, and every day I couldn't because what if you did kill me? What if telling the truth made everything worse? So I just kept lying, and lying, and lying until the lie was too big to ever fix. Silence. Then, I wouldn't have killed you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Raka sat down on the stone floor, suddenly looking exhausted. You want to know how I know? Because 3 days ago, when I found out who you were, my first thought wasn't traitor or enemy or liar. It was, he must have been so scared. My first instinct was to protect you, even knowing you'd lied, even knowing what was coming. I wanted to protect you. She laughed bitterly. I'm an idiot. You're not. I am. I fell in love with a lie. You fell in love with me. The lie was the name. Everything else was real. Was it? Raka looked at him. The conversations about peace, about questioning war, about building bridges instead of burning them, were those real? Or were you just saying what I wanted to hear? Damien moved to sit beside her, slowly, giving her space to object. She didn't. Every word was real, he said quietly. The man you knew, that's me. That's who I am when I'm not wearing a crown, or leading diplomatic missions, or being the heir everyone needs me to be. That's the person I want to be, someone who questions, who thinks, who believes war is a failure of imagination, not an inevitability. And your father, what does he believe? He believes I'm worth burning the world for. Damien closed his eyes. He's not a bad man, Raka. He's just a father who lost his wife and can't bear to lose his son too. He's making terrible decisions for the best reasons. The best reasons still kill people. I know. They sat in silence. Two young people who'd somehow become the center of a war neither wanted. I have a plan, Felix said suddenly from the darkness. Both of them had almost forgotten he was there. It's insane, likely to get us all killed, but it's better than the alternative. What's the alternative? Raka asked. War. Genocide. The end of any possibility that orcs and humans can ever see each other as anything except enemies. Felix moved into the light. Your mother wants to use Damien as leverage. His father wants to use force to take him back. Both strategies end in maximum bloodshed. So what's your plan? Damien walks out of here, publicly, voluntarily, with you beside him. Felix looked between them. You go to the battlefield together, you stand in front of both armies, and you tell them the truth. That's not a plan, Damien said. That's suicide. Maybe, or maybe it's the only honest thing left to do. Felix's voice was gentle. You started this with a lie. End it with the truth. Both of you. Show two armies that have forgotten how to see each other's humanity, what it looks like when two people from different worlds choose peace. My mother will never allow it, Raka said. Your mother is a queen, but you're a princess. You have authority. Use it. His father will never listen. His father loves him. And fathers, when given the chance to save their children without bloodshed, will take it. Felix smiled sadly. I've known Raymond for 30 years. He doesn't want war. He wants his son. Give him both a son and a reason to hope, and he'll choose hope. And if you're wrong, Damien asked, if we walk out there and both armies just kill us, then at least you'll die honest. Together. Having tried, Felix put a hand on each of their shoulders, which is better than dying apart, still lying, while thousands die for a truth that never got told. Raka looked at Damien. What do you think? I think it's insane. That's not an answer. I think, Damien took a breath, I think lying got us into this. Maybe honesty is the only way out, even if it kills us. Even if it kills us, Raka repeated. She held out her hand. Partners in potential suicide. Damien took her hand, felt the warmth, the strength, the trust she was offering despite every reason not to. Partners, he agreed. They stood together. Two young people about to attempt something impossible. Two hearts against two kingdoms. Two voices against centuries of hatred. It should have felt hopeless. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing either of them had done in a very long time. Getting past the guards required Raka using her full royal authority and several creative threats. Getting past her mother required showing up in the war room with Damien at her side before Vorga could order them apart. "What is the meaning of this?" Vorga demanded. "I'm stopping a war," Raka said. "Or trying to. By bringing the prisoner into our war room? By bringing someone who has a plan that doesn't end in mass death." Raka's voice was steady despite her hands shaking. "Mother, we can't win this war. Not really. Even if we survive the initial assault, King Raymond will keep coming. He'll call in every human kingdom between here and the sea. They'll unite against a common enemy, us, and we'll be exterminated. You know this. Your generals know this. We're preparing to die with dignity, not to survive." Vorga's silence confirmed the truth. "But there's another option," Raka continued. "We give him back his son, not through ransom, not through negotiation, freely, as a gesture of good faith. And Damien and I walk out to meet both armies together. We show them what could be instead of what has always been. Impossible. Necessary," Felix said, stepping forward. "Your Majesty, and I use that title with respect, this war will end your nation. You must know this. I know that humans have been trying to end our nation for 3 centuries. This is just another attempt. No. This is the final attempt, because this time we're not fighting for land or resources or old grudges. We're fighting for one boy, and that singular focus makes us infinitely more dangerous." Felix's voice was quiet. "Give him back. Not because you're weak, because you're wise enough to recognize a war you cannot win." "And what guarantee do I have that King Raymond won't attack anyway?" "None," Damien said, "except my word. And I know what my word is worth to you now. Nothing, because I lied. But I'm telling the truth now. If you let me walk out of here with Raka, I will do everything in my power to stop this war, even if it means standing against my own father." Vorga studied him. Her face was unreadable. "You would betray your father for us?" "I would honor my father by saving him from becoming a mass murderer. There's a difference." The war room was silent, except for breathing and the distant sound of armies preparing for battle. They'd never fought. Finally, Vorga spoke. "If I allow this insanity and you fail, if both of you die out there, or if your father attacks anyway, what do we gain?" "The moral high ground," Raka said. "The ability to say we tried peace. And maybe, just maybe, the knowledge that one orc princess believed peace was worth dying for." "You sound like your father," Vorga said quietly. "Before the wars made him bitter. Then maybe it's time we remembered what we were, before we forgot how to be anything except warriors." Mother and daughter looked at each other. Decades of disagreements and love and frustrated hopes passed between them in that gaze. "If you die out there," Vorga said finally, "I will raise the human kingdom to its foundations." "If I die out there," Raka replied, "I'll already have failed so completely that revenge won't matter anymore. You're so young, you don't understand yet that everything matters. I understand that 50,000 people are about to die. That matters more than my pride or yours." Vorga closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked older, tired. "Go. Do your impossible thing. I'll give you until sunset. If diplomacy fails, we prepare for war." "Thank you, Mother." "Don't thank me. I'm probably sending you to your death." Vorga's voice cracked just slightly. "But you're right. This war ends in our extinction either way. At least your way offers dignity." They rode out an hour later, no weapons, no armor. Just Raka in simple leather clothing and Damien in clean garments that didn't mark him as prisoner or prince. Felix rode with them as witness and mediator. The battlefield was a valley between 2 ridges. On one side, the orc army, 12,000 warriors in formation, disciplined and ready. On the other side, the human army, 16,000 strong, armor glinting in afternoon sun, siege weapons positioned, cavalry ready. Between them, empty ground where grass grew and wildflowers bloomed, completely unaware that they were about to be crushed by the weight of history. Raka and Damien rode to the center of that empty space and stopped. From the orc side, drums began beating. From the human side, war horns sounded. "This is the part where we probably die," Raka said. "Probably," Damien agreed. "Any last words?" "I'm sorry I lied to you." "I know." Raka smiled. It was sad and genuine and full of every emotion there wasn't time to express. "I'm sorry I didn't make you feel safe enough to tell the truth." "That wasn't your fault." "Wasn't yours either, not really." She looked at the armies. "Ready?" "No." "You?" "Not even a little." They dismounted, stood in the grass together, waited. From the human side, a figure rode forward. King Raymond, older than Damien remembered, more worn, but still radiating the authority of someone who'd ruled for 30 years. He stopped his horse 20 feet away. "Damien," he said. Just that. Just his son's name, carrying all the weight of 3 weeks of fear and fury and relief. "Father, I'm taking you home now." "Not yet." Damien didn't move toward him. "There's something I need to say first. Something you need to hear. Both armies need to hear. We can talk at home." "No!" The word echoed across the valley. "We talk here. Now. In front of everyone. Because what happens next determines whether we build peace or guarantee mutual destruction." Raymond's face hardened. "You're in no position to make demands. I'm in the only position that matters. I'm the reason you're here. I'm the reason 50,000 people are about to kill each other." Damien's voice carried across the field. "I'm the LIE that started this war. So let me be the truth that ends it." Silence. Then Raymond dismounted, walked forward until he stood before his son. "Speak." Damien turned to face both armies. Raka stood beside him. 3 weeks ago," Damien began, his voice loud enough to carry, "I was captured by an orc border patrol. I was terrified. I was certain I would be executed. So I lied about who I was. I said I was a farmer's son. I hid my identity because I believed orcs were monsters who would kill me without hesitation." He paused. Let the words sink into thousands of listeners. "I was wrong. The orc princess standing beside me, Princess Raka, she claimed me as a servant. She gave me a room, fed me, talked to me like I was a person, not property. She questioned her own beliefs because she wanted to understand mine. She risked her mother's anger to show mercy to an enemy, and I fell in love with her for it." The gasp that rippled through both armies was almost physical. "I fell in love with an orc," Damien repeated, "with someone I was taught to hate, with someone who was supposed to be a monster. And she fell in love with me, with who she thought was a farmer, with someone beneath her station, with someone who should have meant nothing." He looked at Raka. She nodded, took his hand. "When she discovered I was a prince," Damien continued, "she had every right to hate me, to feel betrayed, to want revenge. But do you know what she did instead?" He turned back to the armies. "She chose to stand here with me, unarmed, vulnerable, offering peace when war would be easier. Because she believes, and I believe, that this moment right here is more important than any battle we could fight." "Father," Damien addressed Raymond directly, "you came here to save me. I understand that. I'm grateful for it. But if you attack now, you're not saving me. You're destroying the one chance we have to end 3 centuries of pointless killing." "They're orcs, Damien." Raymond's voice shook. "They captured you, imprisoned you, and treated me better than some humans would have. Father, please, listen to what I'm actually saying. They're not what we think they are. We're not what they think we are. We're all just people trying to survive in a world that keeps telling us we have to be enemies." Raka spoke up then, her voice carrying, "My mother, Queen Vorga, she gave me permission to come here. She didn't have to. She could have kept Prince Damien as leverage, could have used him to negotiate from strength. Instead, she let him go, freely, as a gesture of good faith." She addressed the orc army. "I know what you're thinking, that I've betrayed my people, that love with a human is impossible, that this will end badly." Her voice broke slightly. "You're probably right, but I'd rather die trying for peace than live knowing I chose war when another option existed." From the orc army, a voice shouted, "The human will betray you. They always betray us." From the human army, another voice, The orcs will slaughter us if we show weakness. Then let it start with us, Damien shouted back. Let our betrayal or our deaths be the price of finding out if peace is possible. But don't let fear of what might happen prevent us from trying what's never been tried. Silence fell again, heavier this time, weighted with possibility. King Raymond looked at his son, really looked at him. You're serious about this? I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She's an orc. She's a person who showed me mercy when killing me would have been easier. That makes her more honorable than half the human nobles I know. Raymond's jaw clenched. He looked at Raka. And you? What does an orc princess want with a human prince? The same thing any person wants with someone they love, Raka answered. A chance. Just a chance to see if we can build something better than what we inherited. This is insane. Yes, Raka agreed. Absolutely insane. But staying sane hasn't worked for 300 years. Maybe insanity is exactly what we need. Raymond was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked past them to where Queen Vorga sat on horseback at the front of the orc army. Their eyes met across the battlefield. 2 leaders, 2 kingdoms, 2 choices. Raymond raised his voice. Queen Vorga, do you agree to cease hostilities if I withdraw my army? Vorga rode forward slowly, stopped beside her daughter. Do you agree to recognize orc sovereignty over the mountain territories? If you agree to recognize human sovereignty over the lowland valleys and the contested border zones? Joint governance, equal representation, a council where both species have voice. You propose the impossible. I propose what my son believes is possible, and he's earned the right to be heard. Vorga looked at Raka. Daughter, this is what I want, mother. This is what I'm willing to die for. You might still die for it. Peace agreements can fail. Hatred runs deep. Then let it fail honestly. Let us say we tried. Raka's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Please. Vorga's face softened almost imperceptibly. You really love him. I really do, even though he lied to you. He was scared. Fear makes us all do stupid things, but he's telling the truth now. That's what matters. Vorga turned to Raymond. If I agree to this madness, if we attempt peace, and your people break the agreement, I will finish what we started today. Do you understand? If my people break the agreement, Raymond said quietly, I'll help you finish it. Because they'll have proven they learned nothing from this moment. Slowly, impossibly, Vorga extended her hand. Raymond stared at it. An orc hand, green skin, calloused from weapons and war, offering peace. He took it. The sound that rose from both armies wasn't quite cheering. It wasn't relief or joy or celebration. It was something more complex, confusion, hope, skepticism, and the tentative belief that maybe, just maybe, the world could change. Damien felt Raka collapse against him, not from injury, from the sheer weight of tension releasing. We did it, she whispered. We survived, he corrected. That's not the same as succeeding. It's a start. It's a start, he agreed. Felix rode up, dismounted, and put hands on both their shoulders. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever witnessed, possibly both. What happens now? Raka asked. Now. Felix smiled. Now comes the hard part. Making good on all those impossible promises, building trust between people who've only known hate, creating peace when war is all anyone remembers. That sounds harder than what we just did. It will be. Peace is always harder than war. War just requires hate. Peace requires hope. And hope is exhausting. Raymond approached. Up close, Damien could see how much the last weeks had aged him. Son, father, we need to talk. About many things. About what happens next. About her. He glanced at Raka. But first, his voice broke. First, I just need to hold my son and remember how to breathe. He pulled Damien into an embrace, held him like he was afraid letting go would make him disappear again. I'm sorry I scared you, Damien said. I'm sorry I raised you in a world where lying seemed safer than trust. Vorga approached Raka. Daughter. Mother. That was foolish. I know. It was also brave. Your father would have been proud. Would have been, past tense. Vorga smiled slightly. Is proud, wherever he watches from. They didn't embrace. Orcs showed affection differently than humans, but Vorga placed her hand on Raka's shoulder. For orcs, it was the equivalent of what Raymond had done. The armies began to stand down, weapons lowered, siege equipment packed up. Soldiers who moments ago had been ready to die looked at each other across the valley with something new in their eyes. Not quite friendship, not yet, but not quite enmity either. Something in between, something unnamed, something possible. As the sun set over the valley, 4 people stood together in the growing darkness. 2 humans, 2 orcs, bound by blood and choice and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build a world where those differences didn't require violence. It wasn't a happy ending. Not yet. There would be challenges ahead, resistance, prejudice. People on both sides who couldn't let go of generations of hate. But it was a beginning, and sometimes beginnings are enough. 6 months later, the first Human-Orc Council met in a neutral fortress built specifically for the purpose. It was ugly architecture, neither human nor orc, a compromise between aesthetics that satisfied neither side but offended both equally, which made it perfect. Damien and Raka attended not as prince and princess, but as ambassadors. They'd given up their royal titles, not officially, but practically. Both had more important work to do than wear crowns. The council meetings were disaster, arguments that lasted hours, compromise that satisfied no one, progress measured in inches when miles were needed. But they met, week after week. And somehow, slowly, impossibly, things changed. Trade routes opened. Joint patrols were established on borders. A human child waved at an orc merchant, and the orc waved back. An orc family sheltered a human traveler during a storm. Small moments, insignificant individually, but collectively they added up to something that looked almost like peace. On the 6-month anniversary of the day they'd walked into that valley, Damien and Raka stood on a balcony overlooking the fortress courtyard. Below, human and orc delegates argued about fishing rights with the passion of people who cared about fishing rights instead of genocide. "Do you regret it?" Damien asked. "Which part? Falling in love with you? Almost starting a war? Giving up being a princess? Any of it?" Raka thought about it. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of being royal. Someone tells you what to do, you do it, everyone pretends to be happy. This," she gestured at the courtyard, "this is messy and hard, and half the time I'm not sure we're making any progress at all. That's not an answer. I don't regret it." She took his hand. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the world was so broken we had to risk everything to try fixing it. But I don't regret choosing you, choosing this. Even though I lied to you, you apologized. I forgave you. That's what people do when they love each other." She smiled. "Besides, I lied too." "About what?" "I told you I wanted you as a servant. Truth is, from the moment I saw you in that cell, I wanted to know if an orc could love a human, if breaking centuries of hate was possible. You were never a servant. You were always an experiment. That's actually kind of terrible." "I know. Apparently we're both liars, perfect for each other." They stood together as the sun set. Below them, the world continued its messy work of learning to be better. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. "Do you think it'll last?" Raka asked. "This peace we're building?" "I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe in a year or 5 years or 50 years, we'll be right back where we started. Old hatreds are hard to kill." "That's not very optimistic. Here's the optimistic part. If it fails, at least we'll know we tried. At least we'll have proof that peace is possible, even if it's temporary. And maybe the next generation will learn from our attempt. Maybe they'll do better." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" Raka leaned against him. "You know what the worst part is? I can't even hate the people who still want war, because I understand them. Fear is easier than hope. Hate is easier than trust. They're not evil. They're just scared. So what do? We keep trying. We keep showing up. We keep building bridges until either the bridges hold or we run out of materials. She turned to face him. And when I get tired, when I want to quit and go back to being a princess who just follows orders, you'll remind me why we're doing this. And when I get tired, I'll remind you that's what partners do. Partners in potential suicide. Partners in impossible hope. They kissed as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Somewhere in the darkness, both their kingdoms existed, flawed, complicated, full of people trying to unlearn generations of hatred. It would be hard. It would be slow. Many would resist. Some would never change. But tonight, for this moment, peace existed. And two people who'd started as enemies stood together, believing that maybe, just maybe, the world could learn to do the same. The war didn't end because they fell in love. It ended because they chose to tell the truth, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is be honest about who we are, even when lying is safer, even when the truth might destroy us, even when the cost is everything we have, because some truths are worth dying for, and love, real, honest, impossible love, is one of them. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe that love can exist even in the most impossible places, then this channel needs your support. Subscribe to Orc-Bound Tales for more stories about courage, forbidden love, and the truth that sometimes the bravest warriors are the ones who choose peace over battle. Hit that like button if you believe that hearts don't see species, only souls. And share this story with someone who needs to remember that the world can change, one honest moment at a time, because every subscription, every like, every share tells me that these stories matter, that hope matters, that you believe in the impossible too. Thank you for listening, thank you for believing, and remember, the bravest thing you can do is love someone the world tells you to hate. Until the next tale, stay strong, stay hopeful, stay orc-bound.